Do you realize I missed that? I missed that session. Was that on the side?
I wasn't there. So,
yeah,
I was on the side, but so I watched it all. I mean, there's people that record it now. So yeah, he rattled all that off. So like, I watched the whole thing. I just wasn't there to ask the questions.
Whoa.
But yes,
Hang on, Sam. Was that kind of like and I'm insecure and I'm a little paranoid. Was that a DB? It's 2025. Like you could probably go back and watch that. Is
No.
that kind of what that was? I mean, I kind of was
Nope.
giving me those vibes, Sam.
No.
Funny.
You can't.
No,
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't. That's where he talked about Frost and all that. So
okay, all right.
We don't need to revisit those comments. The bottom line is they're playing football here in a month, and what happens going forward is a lot more pertinent than what happened.
Hey Sam, I don't know if you know this, but in the meantime, man, if Nebraska needs to just win games, like, what?
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for me to move on from that and not be so pissed every time somebody tells me that as though I don't know? Like, you still have to do things in the meantime that give you a chance to win games without actually playing games. Are we just at that fever pitch as a fan base? Just win, man. Just win.
Kinda.
No poop.
Kinda is, yeah. I gotta be honest. Yeah, people are kind of there. There's a lot of anticipation for the season. I do think it has something to do with the opener being a game that Nebraska, in theory, could lose. I think Nebraska will win, but I think there's a lot of excitement about that opener. It's going to be on national TV. 5 million people will be watching. That's a big deal. And then, as I wrote today, that game against Michigan is only 2 months away, and it looms. And it will be an extremely important game for Nebraska. So in between the Cincinnati game and Michigan, they play, HCU, Houston Christian, and Akron. But, that Michigan game is awfully big. And everybody knows it. I think within and without the program, everybody kind of knows the importance of that contest. And so absolutely, people are excited. They're really excited. People are ready to see what Nebraska is going to do. And I think Rhule has put it on a tee. Like he gets people excited, but based on the way he talks about it.
Sam, let me ask you this about the open period today. How much of you is, hey, this is the job and people are interested in this, obviously, and they're excited to get any little bit of morsel about this football team, versus you think you can actually learn and pick things up from the open period?
I don't know that we can pick a lot today. I think they have an open practice on Saturday, and you can always pick up one or two things from a practice, like watching a full thing, even if it's a little bit different kind of practice. So I'll save some of those, hey, that person stood out, or hey, this person did that for Saturday. But I'll give you an example. When we had the open practice, or we had 30 minutes of practice back in the spring, we got to watch, receivers and defensive backs go against each other, and you get to see the competitiveness and that setting of John Butler, who's the defensive coordinator, compared to, Dana Holgerson's a little more laid back. And I watched the defensive backs win almost all of those one-on-ones, and linebackers win almost all of those one-on-ones, with the exception of Mekhi Nelson, who won a lot of them. So like you do get a sense of how these players are. So yeah, I mean, there's things you can glean. It's not like the Mike Riley era when we got to sit there for 3 hours and watch everything. That was a lot, and it almost got a little tedious after a while. But you do learn something about the way that these guys work. And not today much, though. I'll look at I'll look at some of the newcomers, see how they look physically. And then at Fan Day, you can do that again, and then the open practice. I think they have a pretty good idea of what they want to do at nearly every position, but there's still some question marks out there. Mac Markway and Carter Nelson are coming back off of injury, and so I'm sure they're going to test very quickly what those guys are physically capable of. And if they're capable of doing everything, it changes the nature of that room very fast.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting, though? And the reason I don't go, because I'm hungry or to give you pushback, but I will say this. And I just, on a personal note, with like Coach Addison Williams or Coach Butler or even Coach Snow, I know one, and I'll just use this position group for instance, por ejemplo. as they say as a coaching staff, if nothing else, this camp will be highly competitive on the back end. And that's with Sierra Wright coming back, starter. Deshaun Singleton coming back, starter. Malcolm Hartzog coming back, incumbent starter. Marquise Buford coming back, incumbent starter. When your position coaches and your coordinator is telling you it's going to be competitive, and 4 of those guys are incumbents, I'm going to guess it's going to be pretty competitive in terms of what they know and what they don't know.
Right. I think that's accurate. Certainly the secondary is probably the best position group. Maybe the offensive line is right there with them, but that group has the luxury of being deep enough to where you can have that competition and maybe carry it out a little bit longer, or use specific older players or younger players in circumstances. You know, like, this guy's going to come in and he's going to help us here, or we don't necessarily have to play this guy X number of snaps. Generally speaking, corners play every snap of the game. I will say that. Like, there are changes, of course, but broadly speaking, your corners play the most snaps on defense, maybe one of your linebackers. So I will be curious to see who the number 2 corner is, and by that I mean the corner that's probably opposite Sierra Wright, and whether or not those guys just kind of stay on the field. Because sometimes when you bring those guys off and you put a new group in, it doesn't always work. Like, sometimes a guy gets in the rhythm of the game and understands the eccentricities of the receiver, and when you switch that out, the receiver all of a sudden gets an advantage on the guy you put in. So, well, I'll be curious to see how much they rotate their corners when the season begins, and whether they feel like they can rotate 4 guys, or if they're just going to stick with 2 on the edges.
Sam, how good does it feel to be able to say that you're looking at best groups on the team and you're like, yeah, offensive line is definitely in that conversation, when, was it even, last year probably to a certain extent, but certainly 2 years ago, we looked at this offensive line as probably one of the biggest liabilities on the team?
I think it's really good. I think their line is good. I think they've done a nice job of developing depth and retaining players. That was the key, is that there's going to be guys that probably aren't going to play as much as they'd like, and probably aren't going to play as much as they could have somewhere else, who stuck around. And that's to Donovan Rhule's credit. These guys want to play with him, play for him. So that's a lot of it, I think. And then they've been able to develop the young guys. Honestly, I think their offensive line could be good for a number of years. I don't think this is going to be a peak and then, well, next year it'll be a valley. I really don't. I think next year they're going to be just as good. They'll do it with slightly different players because they're young guys, but these will be guys that have been in the program for 2 and 3 and in some cases 4 years. And no, they've got it rolling. I think they have a really good setup for their offensive line. Their defensive line.
He dropped you that chicken nugget too, where he said, offensive line is going to be one of those positions where we're going to always recruit at the high school level and develop, right? Like, he clearly has has a plan on what that position group is supposed to look like.
Yeah, there's a vision there for sure. They've had to supplement it with transfers the last couple of years, but there is a vision at that position. And I think they'll be able to. The reason I keep telling people, and I'm not trying to poo-poo this season at all, if you pinned me down today, I'd say 8-4, 5th or 6th in the Big Ten, probably not elite, but clearly better. But the reason I tell people it's a 2-year conversation with Rhule about where this program can take the next leap is because I think next year's team could be really, really, really good. And that's because a lot of the guys that they're developing are probably about a half season away.
I know one of those guys.
There's a bunch of guys. There's cornerbacks, there's defensive backs, there's linemen, there's receivers. Like, I don't know how good Quinn Clark's going to be against Cincinnati, but by the end of the year, he could be pretty darn good, and so could Cortez Mills. And there's a bunch of guys that just are about a half season away. And by the start of next season,
I agree.
And I'm not trying to poo-poo at all this season, I'm just saying that the offensive line discussion brings into focus the reality that they are not anywhere near peaking. Like I know they want to win a lot this year, and I think they're going to win pretty well. But where they can go is really special next year. That's why this playoff discussion that people kind of want to go away, they should not want it to go away. Because I'm hard-pressed in this moment to say Nebraska's a CFP team this year. But if they expand that thing to 16, I'd put them in for next year. And then they'd be right on the cusp of 12. Like, I'm not kidding. I feel like I've looked at it pretty closely, and where this program is going is going to be a heck of a lot better than where it's been. And yeah, it's going to, I think over the next couple of years, you're going to see that ceiling go way up.
Sam, of those guys because I think that the half year away is super interesting, right? Of those guys that you think are about a half year away, how many of those are at positions where you think Nebraska might need them a little before they're ready?
Some of them are linemen, so I don't know if Grant Bricks and Gibson Pyle and Taumua, I don't know if they're going to play a ton. They'll probably play against Akron and Houston Christian, but you guys and I have talked about what I believe about the Big Ten in general and about Nebraska's schedule, and I just don't see a lot of games where maybe Northwestern, but probably not, where they're going to be rolling third stringers in at any time during the game. So I think some of the linemen are probably not going to play right away. I think some of the defensive backs may get more time because, and Damon knows this, sometimes defensive backs over the course of a 12 or 13 game season have a game and a half where they're not right.
Yeah, they just don't feel good. Yeah.
Yeah, they got a bad wheel or whatever. In years past, Nebraska's had to play those guys anyway.
Yep.
See Tommy Hill.
Tommy Hill, Malcolm Hart. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now they don't have to. In theory, they can put Caleb in, or they can put Donovan Jones in, depending on where Donovan's playing. Maybe safety, maybe corner, probably safety, right?
Yeah.
Like they can put other guys in. They can put Amari Sanders in as the third or fourth corner. If I don't know who's going to start opposites here, right? It might be Amari Sanders, but they can put somebody else in. And so I think those guys will play. The receivers, I don't know. And the reason I don't know is because you're going to have to tell me what the tight end room does. Because to me, if Carter Nelson comes out and says, I'm speaking rhetorically here, hey guys, I'm here and I'm going to show you everything I could do, then he's going to play a lot of football. You can't keep him off the field for 79% of the snaps in a game. But that's me talking. Like I maybe Holgerson feels differently about it.
I don't know, man. I get it, Sam. Lindemeyer is going to get paid to play on Sundays. Markway is a 5-star recruit. Harburg is top 10 athletes on your team. Like, I get the prowess of Carter, and I love his intentionality in terms of his commitment to the room. But that is a highly competitive room, man. Like, he could probably get to the point where it's uncomfortable that he's not on the field, right? Because that's what you want as a player, right? You want the coaches to be thinking, man, how is this guy not on the field yet? I probably ought to figure out a way to get, you know what I mean? Like, I could see that, but if Sat gets him ready to go early, given the transition and the weight gain and the coming off of the injury, that would be really, really impressive, even for as talented as Carter is.
Right. You're right. And so we'll see how he comes along. Like, if he comes in and he's everything that they would hope he would be as a true sophomore, then I think it changes your conversation around receiver. And the same goes for Mac Markway. If he comes in and he's really good, which he could be, if he comes in and he's really good, then that changes your conversation and your dynamic as to who's going to play a lot. Or if Harburg figures it all out and puts it all together. So, like, there's components there where tell me what one guy's going to do, and I'll tell you what it may affect somewhere else, such as receiver. And then at running back, the same thing. And so, I don't know. I think the defensive linemen are probably going to rotate through. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, some of the young defensive linemen, I don't know if those guys are going to play this year or not, but But I think they've got some depth there. And now Keona Davis, it should not. They would hope that he's not a half season away, and he's just here. I'm sure they would love for Keona Davis to be an impact player on the second drive of the game in Arrowhead. Like I'm not counting him. I'm not when I think of these people, I don't think of that guy. I don't really think of Van Poppel. Like, these guys have to play right away, which is why if what Rhule said to you, Damon, about that group being hell on wheels, this could be a really special team. Because if they're really good at that position, then I think they're going to be really, really good on defense.
Yeah, I told Ravi, for as much skirt and pom-pomming as he's done of this group since February, I said that's the one position that if he's right and they are good, I think we can handle context, right? If the defensive line is remotely formidable, they're gonna win a lot of games. Like,
yes,
I don't know how else to say it without feeling like I'm handing you a pitcher with sugar free and a stir, right? Like, I don't know what else to tell you about drinking the Rhule-Aid other than if that D line is good, this football team is going to be pretty good. Because I know that offensive line did they did a number this spring. It was the most dominant position group out there. So
I believe it.
If that D line is good, and they got a ton of talent on paper, they may have more capable. I've said this, they do. They have more capable bodies than a year ago. That doesn't mean they'll produce, but from a potential capability standpoint, they got more options. I mean, you can play Judy, you can play Linhart, you can play Gold, you can play Mason, you could play Riley Van Poppel, you could play Keona Davis. You may be able to play in Minari. Like, you have several more options than you did a year ago, in my opinion.
You have options. They're young, and that's a position that you learn.
Yeah, so maybe the floor is lower, but the ceiling is certainly higher. And I don't even know if the floor is lower due to talent. It's just it's just inexperience.
Inexperience, and again, I don't know if Sharon Moore is going to coach the Michigan game or not, but the game that I used today, so I wrote about this in the Rewind about the defensive line, is Michigan will come in. Michigan does not want to ask its quarterback to throw it 40 times. And they may not even want ask their quarterback to throw it 20 times. We don't know. It's clearly a big question mark in their program right now whether Bryce Underwood is ready. But at any rate, they're not going to ask him to do very much. They're going to trot their 2 and 3 tight ends onto the field in 95-degree heat, and they're going to compress the field. They're going to put it right in the middle of the field, right between the hash marks, and they're going to try to punch holes through Nebraska's front seven. That's what they'll do. And Nebraska's going to have to be ready for it. I have no doubt.
Who's built to do that, Sam?
Who's built to do what?
Who's built to line it up and tank it at Nebraska as their offense sits today?
Michigan.
Okay.
Well, Michigan's going to try to do it. I don't know if they can, but I don't think Michigan's equipped to run a spread. And I've kind of listened to the ear to the ground stuff with Michigan and that quarterback up there, and he's probably going to be really good. But I don't know that he's really good right yet.
Today.
And it's very unfair, and people were unfair to Dylan last year to expect. This is why a lot of times these guys go in and they redshirt. They do not play right away because it's too hard to do all the things when you're 18. You actually got to be a year older. That's why Dylan, I think, is going to be a hell of a lot better this year because what he was asked to do last year is almost unprecedented these days. They don't actually ask for freshmen to do that.
Man, I couldn't agree more. I could.
They don't do it.
Now, Sam, and I don't know how it's going to translate. I just know it makes me excited to know that he's not just the good-looking, charismatic 5-star. He's the good-looking, charismatic 5-star that's had an off season where he's like put in work. And now it's like you give, it's like adding eggs or protein to the salad, man. It just gives it body.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, man. He excites me, not just because he's with Coach Holgorsen another year, but because he's laid it on the line.
Right. I hope that one of the things I hope we see in the open practice and I hope Holgerson gets on Rhule if he doesn't do it. I really like to see Dylan just fire the ball and just throw it. Really let it go, put it on time, make the guys catch the ball. You don't have to pretty it, like just throw it and really let go of the ball and put it out in front of guys and make them run it down and do all the things that your arm can do. I felt like at times last year it's almost like he was a little tentative to just let it go and throw the ball. Whether it was I don't want to throw an interception or I'm not sure this guy's going to get there. I don't know what it was exactly, but the hope is that he goes in. He's worked with these receivers now, and there's just that the receiving core is deep enough that there's a new standard as to how you're going to run your routes and get open and catch the football, and that Dylan's able to get on receivers occasionally if he has to when they don't do what they need to do, and that Holgerson and the quarterback's coach are able to say, Dylan, throw the football.
Yeah.
Let it go. Let it go. Drive it. Like Langsdorf always used to say that, and Langsdorf, he'd be like, drive the ball. Don't, just when you see that throw and it's open and there's not a linebacker in front of you, drive it. Throw it the way you can, and throw a fastball. And I'd like to see Dylan do that, because I think that's how you create big plays that aren't like 75-yard touchdowns because some guy broke a coverage. You throw a guy a really well-paced ball, he catches it in stride, breaks one tackle, and he's gone. Like, let Dane Key do what he can do, but throw the football to him. You don't have to throw it cute or feather it or whatever. Just throw it.
People going back to that whole just win thing, right? And I get it. I got to chill the heck out with letting that get under my skin. But it's primarily not because I disagree with it. It's because I don't think we realize how much of the model behavior, the not complaining, the no want, just no BCD, right? No blaming, complaining, deflecting. They own it. They move on. They talk about, you heard Coach Rhule in Vegas say, let's talk about what we are. Let's talk about what we do have. He asked that early of his coaches, right? Don't tell me what a player can't do. And we don't really see the usefulness in that immediately, so we kind of have a tendency to eye roll. But let's say you're right, and we entertain the fact that they got a handful of players that are probably half a season away, right? The Caleb Bennings, the Quinn Clarks, maybe a Keelan Smith, maybe a Williams and Winari, maybe insert guy, right?
Mosey,
whatever. Or it's a guy like Donovan Jones who's used to play, who played, had some success. A lot is thought of you, but some other guys got better too, right? So wherever your situation is for being close to playing, the culture matters, right? You said earlier, guys don't want to leave. So you need an environment that breeds being other-centered and trustworthy, and that we have your best interests, because it buys you time in development. It's not the actual lifting and eating and training development, but it buys you emotional development time when things may not be happening as fast as you want it to. That's where all those things matter. If your coach doesn't bitch and moan and complain about what, the hand that they're dealt, or the travel schedule, or the economics, or whatever, then you don't feel right about it as a player either, and you're not going to do it. It's going to matter in the long run, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Does that make you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yes. So the reason that I talk about multiple years is in part because of what you're talking about. I want fans and readers to look at this as a ceiling conversation, not a I don't even know, floor conversation, but not even really floor, but more like, counter conversation. I think a lot of people, rightfully so, I've been a little burned by Nebraska football. And so what they're looking for really is just something that isn't embarrassing. Like, oh, if we could win 7-5 or 8-4 and go to a bowl game that's, on New Year's Day, and that'd be good. And, and I'm not trying to be rude. That's kind of rooting to be Iowa. And that's what Iowa is. And I'm not trying to knock Iowa. I don't think Iowa's going to be 10-2 this year, but they've knocked on the door.
I don't think we have to apologize for talking about Iowa's consistency. That gets old.
No.
Like, you know what?
We don't. Right.
You're
right.
You're right.
The ceiling isn't very high.
And I don't think we have to apologize for aspiring to be more than Iowa either. Right? You can say both things, and they can both be true. Yeah.
I mean, Iowa's ceiling, as currently constructed with the current coaching staff, will never be as high as it could be, because, and I want to say this to tip my hat to Ferentz, the way he chooses to run his program and the way they choose to recruit the portal and recruit freshmen, it's going to be very hard for them ever to win 11 or 12 games based on what they're doing. But what they do really well is maximize what they have on hand. Nebraska intends, I think, to be in the ceiling conversation, college football playoff every single year. And that's why what you do this year, while important, and they have a chance to make the CFP, can also be viewed as a precursor to, what happens next year. And vice versa. Like if they struggle this year, well, then next year becomes all the more important. So, but I think that's when I think about where the program is and the youth of the roster, and I think I know why they signed all those transfers, because they want to be good this year. And I think Rhule knows, well, we could have just let it ride with the young kids and rolled Grant Bricks out there and let him kind of battle and struggle, but we're gonna go sign some linemen, and we're gonna go sign some receivers. We're gonna go get a couple guys that probably delay Quinn Clark getting on the field, because there's a sense that you can't lose two of Dylan's 3 years in college, and maybe he'll be here 4, but you know what I mean? Like, they have to go out and try to win those games. But the conversation is longer than one season. And when they look at their program writ large, they're thinking about the biggest picture possible. Like, they look at a guy who's a redshirt freshman, and they're not thinking, how is this guy going to help us beat Michigan? But how is this guy going to develop within the program so that 2 years from now, when we're at Ohio State, we win because this guy helped us do it. So, like, there's a big part of Rhule's job is to have that big vision. Like, that's part of his job. And so, like, he does a really good job with it too. He has a really good sense of where they're at and where they're going. And so when he says this is going to be a great job and, quote unquote, we need to win games, he's not just talking about this year, but multiple seasons. And I'm just telling people that it sets up really nicely. Even though we start camp now, I'm going to be going in there looking at guys that I don't think are probably going to play that much this year, because I look at this thing as a multi-year conversation, and this year is merely part of a longer story.
That is our guy, Sam McKewon, Omaha World Herald. Great stuff as always, Sam.
I'm vibing.
Appreciate it, and enjoy a little bit of practice you get to see today.
All right, take care.
Thanks, Sam.